Hello and welcome to the Inspired live stream here on the Inspired channel on Rumble, on YouTube. Welcome everybody. I'm John Nolan, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's a good day for great news. And so much of what we're talking about so often has both sides. It has the good news, kind of oftentimes translated through the bad news, if you will. But it's a great news day actually. And before we do that, let me welcome you with a proper introduction to the Inspired live stream. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. Listen, this mantra was born in 2020, right? When the shit hit the fan and it was those unprecedented times that nobody had experienced before. Everything was weird. People were under different mandates, if you will, all that. And so the mantra was born: we're healthy, wealthy, whole, and free. And it's never gone away because for a lot of people, it became their daily affirmation and it had turned into a reality. And that's exactly what such a mantra is supposed to do: healthy, wealthy, whole, and free. So let me welcome you all before I go into the great news and why I think really, and this is really no BS, I think we reached critical mass in the population. And I will explain what that means, why I think that is so, and what I think that will actually do within the big scheme of things. But let me first welcome Deepwater. Brent is here. Kelly is here. Welcome, JT, Ronnie. Good to see you, my friend. Oh, Ronnie, yeah, just wonderful. Thank you for being here. Lamia, Rhonda. Let me see who else. And if I butcher a name, I'm very sorry. Jen is here. Welcome. So I'm going to go into a few just okay, let's peel the onion properly. A lot of people think, especially in this Great Awakening community, wonderful people. I mean, wonderful folks all over, really. Not, I mean, never everybody, but a lot of wonderful folks. But people think that great change and transformation in a society, on earth, in a country, however you want to define the space where the change happens, is somehow a mystical thing. That for some reason there are no parameters that you can look at to quantify that. And the truth is that's not true. Of course, your perception, your feeling as to how that change is unfolding in your world and what you observe is one aspect of it, but it's not the only aspect. There are certain parameters that you can take that point towards change. And if we add them all together, I can tell you we've reached critical mass. How much is that? I'll get into that percentage number, but I'll give you a few very interesting stats that are very understandable for everybody, whether they're more mainstream oriented or whether they're more spiritual awakening, let's go oriented. Okay, so for example, this is a conservative number that we found among all the stats. Today in the United States, 6% of the school-aged population are homeschooled. 6%. That is a substantial increase in 20 years from 1.9%, right? So that has tripled in the last 20 years. I will say this: that's only counting the kids that are being homeschooled, really homeschooled. That's not counting certain online schools. That's not counting pod schooling. That's not counting a very different approach to private schools, right? So you have in that broader spectrum of, let's say, more conscious and holistic approach to education, you probably have a number that's more likely towards 15 to 20% of the school-aged population that are receiving a more holistic approach to education. This is huge. This is so huge, right? This is an amazing stat that I love reading. And again, these stats are usually underreported because different states count these numbers differently or define things differently. So we're probably way above that number, and it's wonderful to read that. Then if we go into another very important stat that is always connected to a greater to a change in a society, Americans today, again, this is the most conservative stat that we found: 1 in 3 Americans grow some of their own food. 1 in 3. And this number was from 2020, uh, And it was already anticipated that that would go up to about 2/3, so 2 in 3 Americans over the next years that we're in right now. So it can be said today that, let's say half of America is at least growing some food. Incredible, incredible actually to think that. But even more incredible is that up to 68% of the people say that they intend to do more in the following months and years. This is a wonderful, wonderful trend, because when you look at the motivations and the inspirations for why these people want to grow more food, one is of course cost of living. Yes, sure, but there are so many other factors that come into it. They want healthier food. In order for you to understand that you want healthier food and you're not going to get it even from Whole Foods or those places, you have to have a certain level of consciousness. And that's what these people are expressing by showing their intentions this way. This is a wonderful stat. Okay, then we looked at some trust factors, right? Only 7% of the population in the United States today, and again, we're talking about the United States, but you can assume that some of these stats will be even better and higher in other countries, and some factors a little lower, but it's really kind of across the board. 7% of the population in America today fully trust the mainstream media. 7% fully trust the mainstream media. That's a historic low. Only 7% versus 38% of the American population does not trust the mainstream media at all. Let that sink in. 38% do not trust mainstream media at all. That is a huge number. That it's actually amazing that that's really 38%. This is coming from a I believe Pew Research or Gallup poll. It's one of those mainstream institutes. So a very, very interesting number. On average, and there's a difference between Democrat and Republican leaning or independent leaning people, but on average, the full trust in the government is at 19%. Only 19% of the population fully trusts or mostly fully trusts the government. This is huge. This is huge because the reverse numbers are so big. It means that 80%, 81% of the American people have limited or no trust in the government. And not that that in and of itself is a positive thing. So we have to unwrap this properly. Ideally, the government or the people we elect as representatives should represent our interests and act accordingly. That's the ideal situation. That, of course, hasn't happened in a long time. So the distrust is absolutely warranted in the situation, right? So this is wonderful, but I'll give you the kicker, the most beautiful one. 81% and rising, by the way, of Americans believe in God or the Creator. It's to varying degrees how they express and live their faith, but 81%, okay? 81%. This is a beautiful, beautiful number because we all know that for that real transformation to happen, it has to be creator based. It has to be spiritually based. And there's no way around this, right? So these are some really, really astonishing numbers. And I know we're now wrestling with some of the greatest revelations in history, and it seems that we're having some of the darkest times. But what you need to take into account that these times can only happen and are happening because of critical mass, right? What is critical mass? Okay, in spiritual circles, the critical mass is somewhere between 1 to 3%. That's what they say. Some say 3 to 6%. But so they say 1 to 3% of highly actualized people that have fully integrated their divine spark and their co-creative powers, they steer the revolution in any society. I won't dispute that. I won't say that's wrong because I do believe highly actualized people account for hundreds of thousands of others that aren't. But let's take a mainstream scientific number that in sociology, that if you take critical mass factors from physics, from sociology, from economy, then you get this one number, and that's 10%. So basically, it is said that in any given field, if 10% of the people adopt and integrate and think about, that's what these people are saying, and think about comprehensively about new ideas, new ways, transformation, systemic change, then it will happen. When 10% of the population is reached, these ideas, these new ideas, whatever they are, or even old original ideas, will spread exponentially and create that change. So here's me going on a record saying we've reached that critical mass. We've reached the spiritual actualizing people. I believe that. And we have reached the 10% in the population. I believe some of these numbers that we talked about really show this. Now, would you go out and say, hey, I'm going to my supermarket. I don't believe you, John, that they're not conscious. You have to know this, that if you take the critical mass, right, only 10% of that critical mass are probably vocal. Only 10% of that critical mass are probably expressing that in a substantial way. Most people are not vocal about that. Most people don't live their life like that. They think about things, they will share it with their inner circle, but they might not talk about it. So we are seeing in all fields where the trust is being removed from. And so these critical mass people are looking for new things to put their trust in. What are they discovering? Oh, they're discovering some of these sovereign things, right? They're discovering God. They're discovering the creator. That's the most important thing. They're discovering a more self-reliant lifestyle. They're becoming emotionally, spiritually, physically more independent. They're looking to grow their own food. They're looking to educate their children. They're looking to become self-reliant in all areas. This is an incredible, incredible improvement that we have seen in the last years. And I believe we need to celebrate the good news by affirming and talking about this as well. As we walk through this valley of darkness, and next month, as I said, a few things will be coming out that will hit the mainstream, probably like never before. But this can only happen because we've reached critical mass. If it wouldn't have happened. And go, even in the Mockingbird media, go and look at clips from 10, 15 years ago, what they have talked about and how they've talked about it, and what they're talking about now and how they're talking about it now. They're still morons. They're still complete morons, but they can't ignore certain things any longer. And they're becoming daily topics, even if they're spun, even if they put their spin on it, but they're talked about. And this is what critical mass does. When enough people express more than just interest in certain topics, these topics become a talked about reality. And this is what we're seeing. So in all of this, I want to congratulate you. I want you to give yourself some credit, because of all the times where it would have been more convenient, more comfortable to keep your mouth shut, of all the times that it would have been easier to not say a thing, to not share a post, to not send that text, to not put attention on a certain thing, you have never given up hope. And because you've never given up hope, even in your darkest hours, you have helped reach critical mass, and you have elevated this message by continually showing up, and you're continually doing this. And it is time every now and then that we pat ourselves on the shoulder for a job well done and continue doing it in even better ways. And I just want to tell you that today is such a day. I believe we have that. We have that critical mass. And because we have it, and what is one of the characteristics of this critical mass is, once they reach a certain state of realization and consciousness, there is no turning back, because it's not a Pepsi or Coke kind of choice. You're moving beyond the current programming. And once you see the programming for what it is, you'll never return into it, because you know it's detrimental, because you know it's wrong, because you know it's false. So this is incredible, right? And in the next days, I will go in a few videos, I'll go a little more into why certain things were so manipulated, and how streams, very positive streams, have already appeared in the 90s in certain countries, and movements have, started in certain countries that were later demonized. So this is going to be very interesting when you see how this all happened. But today, for me, for you all, I hope it's a day to celebrate. I mean, if I think that, let's say 10 to 15% of the American children are receiving a more holistic education, are opening and broadening their perspectives, are realizing the falsehoods. Well, they don't even realize the falsehoods as much as they just get taught something that's more authentic. And I know we're not there. We're always improving, but we're cracking this whole thing open. And it can be, it's like an eggshell that you crack. Once the crack has occurred, you can't put it back together. The crack has occurred, right? And in multiple places. So this is happening, friends. That's a day for celebration and great news. Just wanted to share this with you. And just want to say how much I appreciate you all, how much we appreciate you all, and for being with us on this journey, on basically a pioneer path that we're forging together that hasn't been there before. It's not the highway, it's not the interstate, it's this path that we're forging, and we're creating it together as we go. It's beautiful, it's inspiring, and sometimes it's difficult, but hey, so be it, right? I mean, we're doing it together. All right. Much love to you all. Many blessings to wherever you are in the world. Let us know in the comments later too. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll be back with you again very soon.